Meghann, thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now. Of course, we've been talking about this case, covering all aspects of it really for the last 3 weeks. It ended in court right then with that moment where they announced that he was not guilty on both counts. You saw the elation in his face. He looked very nervous as well before they read the verdict. But just walk us through what happened in the courtroom at the moment when the judge announced that he was not guilty.
Oh, it was pandemonium in the courtroom. People erupted in cheers, and it was loud. It was just chaos. Everyone was cheering and celebrating. He leapt over to hug his family, like you said. And of course, there was a sheriff's deputy yelling at the cameraman, "Don't film the audience. They're not supposed to film the audience." It was just chaos, but people were celebrating. I mean, it was mass cheers and celebration from people behind me. I mean, everyone was just elated. It was incredible. I mean, it happened two and a half hours ago, and I'm still kind of like coming down from it because it was just, wow, one of those life experiences, you know?
Absolutely. And those moments that you were talking about where the cameraman wasn't supposed to show, in the corner, you can see Rihanna. She's there. He's hugging her. And we haven't seen that at all over these last few weeks. They've been doing a very good job there in the courtroom of not showing the audience as they've been told not to. But it's interesting that in the moment when he's found not guilty, we do get to see him hugging his family.
Yeah. I mean, that was such an emotional moment. So raw and, you know, right there for the cameras. But I mean, he would have had that reaction whether there were cameras there or not. I'm sure. But it was just it was quite a moment in the courtroom because, and I think a lot of people were thinking that when they came back with a quick verdict like that could it be guilty? I mean, people who have been around the court system a long time say that, you know, a not guilty verdict would take longer than that. But also his supporters have been saying that this should be a quick not guilty verdict, that they just didn't see the evidence there. They didn't see the credibility in Relly. But what's really interesting is a juror has done an interview afterward. And this is just one of the 12 jurors who deliberated. But she did say that most of them did think that the gun was real. And she even said that they thought that a crime was committed and that Relly did fear for his life, but they just didn't see the evidence there to convict on the 2 gun crimes that he was charged with. It was really a remarkable interview, but she even said that, you know, Mr. Mayers is lucky and, you know, that we just didn't have enough evidence to convict here. But, you know, she thought this was a childish thing that could be avoided. But I think everybody involved in the case admits that this was just a childish thing. I mean, the prosecutors were bringing that up in their statements. So it was really quite a moment in the courtroom, in a huge victory for him and his lawyers, for sure.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it was a relatively quick verdict, about 3 hours. And online, people were speculating, oh no, does this mean that he's going to be convicted ultimately? But when you were talking about the jurors as well, and the fact that they thought that the gun was real, I remember in those closing statements, the prosecution said, if you think the gun is legit, you must not acquit. That was obviously a throwback to the O.J. Simpson trial. Why do you think it is that they could think that the gun was real, but still, what was the evidence that they felt was lacking enough to convict?
You know, I did wonder when I was listening to the prosecutor, John Lewin's rebuttal, I'm like, is he doing anything he can to snatch victory or snatch defeat from the jaws of victory? But I said something to Joe Tacopina. I said, have you ever heard a prosecutor go over all the reasons a jury could acquit in his rebuttal? I mean, he really put a lot of stuff out there. And, you know, there were a lot of problems in the case. I mean, a lot of people have brought up the problems in Relly's own testimony, and the prosecutors even admitted that he said things on the stand that weren't true. Their point was that he did not lie about anything material to the case, that his story about the shooting has always been corroborated. But, you know, when you have that kind of omission up there, it's not good for the case. But also what's interesting is the juror, and granted, this is only one of 12 jurors, said that she did feel that Relly was in fear for his life, and that something did happen. It's just the facts weren't there, the evidence wasn't there, the instructions wouldn't allow them to convict. But I think in the next few days, hopefully, we're going to hear from more jurors that can really drill into this case and talk about, you know, why they made the decision that they did, because everyone has different opinions of it on sides. But a lot of people thought that this could be a fast acquittal for him because of the credibility problems.
I'm glad you brought up the fact that you talked to the lawyer, Joe Tacopina, outside court. I want to play out what you asked him as well. Let's listen.
Prosecutor just goes over all the reasons the jury could acquit.
You know, Meghann, I was a little surprised at that rebuttal. A rebuttal is supposed to be rebutting what I say.
Yeah.
It was a pre-printed 50-page rebuttal that had a donut, a lemon that took a piss apparently, a dog with a mugshot, forest, and, you know, not a lot of details on the facts. And they didn't rebut what I said. As a matter of fact, those 10 questions were death for the prosecution.
Yeah.
I saw the process of the jurors writing those 10 questions down, and they weren't. I was slow walking them through that so they could take time to absorb them. And I didn't see him respond to that at all.
Yeah.
I thought it was a problem for him because I said to the jury, look, if their case is as strong as I say it is, if they've proven it beyond, if they met their burden, they'll answer these questions with confidence, simply and clearly. On the other hand, if it's not, they'll ignore them.
At that point, I didn't think anyone was writing anything down. It was like so late in the day.
No, they wrote those questions down.
Okay.
Oh, I saw at least 3/4 of that jury writing the questions down. But, you know, again, they could have been, you know, drawing pictures at that point, but they were writing it. And, look, so we have different styles. Like, I don't typically yell at witnesses who are being compliant, whether I agree with them or not. You know, I had a guy yelling at me for 3 days, you know, flexing his muscles, throwing water bottles, cursing in the courtroom, calling me bro, calling me by my last name. I kept my cool with him. I mean, as much as I did not want to, because I don't think it looks like you're losing control with the jury to me when you lose control during a cross-examination. When you start yelling, when you start becoming agitated, when you mock somebody. So, but that's just our different styles. But I'm glad.
Thanks so much for actually talking to him afterwards. And we were able to get some insight there. He was talking about the issue that maybe some of the jurors had where they didn't like DA. They didn't like Deputy DA Lewin either in his approach. Do you think that that did have a role in this not guilty verdict as well?
Well, the only juror that I've heard talk said that she thought Lewin did a great job, that he did an outstanding job. So a lot of people, he has, you know, a lot of people have criticisms of him, but we just have to focus on what the jurors are saying. And granted, that's just one of 12 people, but she was really focused on the fact that there just wasn't enough evidence to convict of the gun crimes. And she was saying the instructions just didn't allow them to get there. So, I mean, hopefully we'll hear from more jurors later on and maybe they can really drill into it. But I guess I would be hesitant to blame, you know, the personality of John Lewin for this when a juror even said that she thought he did a great job.
All right, let's talk about the other aspect of it as well. We did hear in those final remarks from Tacopina when he spoke outside of the courtroom, he said that he believes that now this opens up ASAP Relly to being charged with perjury, kind of prodding to see if the deputy DA will bring those charges or the DA's office in general will bring those charges of, they said, extortion and perjury. What are your thoughts? Do you think that's possible?
I wouldn't expect that. I have not seen a lot of perjury cases, or really any. Well, one in federal court that didn't end up going anywhere, but people prosecuted for perjury based on their testimony. A lot of the times the perjury prosecutions you hear about in state court are for like lying on a DMV form or because they signed their name to a form that had something that wasn't in it. I have not seen somebody prosecuted for perjury based on their testimony. And I think when I actually did a big article drilling into all the inconsistencies, and I think prosecutors in their closings were you know, saying that it wasn't material to the case, that was kind of thing. I don't know. I would just be surprised if we saw prosecution based on that. But I think there's a lot of people out there who will be asking about that.
And when we're talking as far about what the next steps are as well, let's talk about the civil cases that could be possible. ASAP Relly has already sued. We do know from what Joe Tacopina said himself in this situation. Do you think that he's still going to try to move forward with some sort of civil case against Rocky, even though there's been a not guilty verdict already?
I do. I think those cases are going to move forward. They obviously are going to have some problems with the not guilty verdict. But I mean, the defamation lawsuit, one of the interesting things in the defamation lawsuit is one of the statements that really takes issue with is Rocky's lawyer saying that no shooting occurred at all, and they'll have two witnesses testify to that. And of course, the defense in this was that there was a shooting. It was just involving a prop gun. But I kind of think that those little differences I'm not sure if that's enough to like really make a case. And the fact that there was a not guilty verdict here doesn't bode well for the future of those cases. But I don't think they're just going to get dropped immediately. I do think we'll see some more litigation going on with them.
And it'll be interesting to watch. But last thing I want to ask you before I let you go, but we have to talk about the Rihanna of it all. We saw the moments in court as well. She was standing right next to him also when he made his remarks outside of the courtroom, thanking God that he is able to walk away a free man. Ultimately, we have to ask you, do you think that her being in court at all with her children had any impact on this case?
I mean, it's hard to say. The juror did say that they did not discuss her, but she was saying, you know, we all have families, we all know about that. And Lewin really emphasized they're not supposed to consider that. But I almost wondered if by him bringing that up over and over again, he was just reminding them of her. But, you know, they really focused on the fact that they didn't think that there was enough evidence to convict here and based on their instructions. So, I mean, I'd like to think that they were really focused on the facts and didn't just, you know, acquit him because they like Rihanna. But, you know, hopefully we'll get more interviews with jurors in the next few days and learn more.
Hopefully we will. And this was some of the moments outside the court that I was talking about. You can just see the crush. Were you in this crush at all of everyone trying to grab and get the good shot of ASAP Rocky? It was very interesting to watch live, I have to say.
I was, and I really try to avoid getting right in the crush of those. I kind of try to get it all in, but it was unavoidable when I was there. I got some video of them coming out, and then there was just this big mob that was knocking over everybody, and it was definitely crazy.
Hopefully they're going home a happy couple at this time. Of course, they walked away hand in hand, walked out of that courtroom, got into their 2 black Escalades and took off, hopefully leaving this behind them as his lawyer, Joe Tacopina, said in those final remarks. Meghann, any final thoughts on this case before I let you go?
No, just, I mean, it's a huge victory for Rocky and his family. You know, I mean, his mom, his sister, just seeing them all. Seeing them all in there and seeing the celebration, you know, I mean, it's just wow. Like it's a great victory for him.
And it was emotional moments in court. I've never seen anything like that before. But of course, that'll be something that now that this case is over, do we have any more on the horizon that you'll be potentially following that we need to be checking in about?
We do have Tom Girardi's sentencing coming up. Well, we're dealing with the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills disbarred lawyer who was undergoing some kind of mental exam about his you know, what's going to happen to him at sentencing. But we've got some more stuff coming up with that soon. So probably turn my attention to that. But it seems like there's always something going on and something coming up in LA courts. So.
It certainly is. And the Real Housewives verdict I'll be interested in because that we even saw that play out on the show. I don't know if you watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills at all, Meghann, but I do. I'm an avid viewer of the show, and we watched how his now estranged wife, they're not officially divorced yet, from what I understand. Erica was dealing with some of that, so we'll definitely be checking in with you once we get some of that information. Again, as always, we appreciate you for being with us here on Live Now.